Echoes from Pyongyang.
May 2022, the Pyongyang Grand Theater. Something in the air felt different that day. It was the most radiant, most breathtaking stage of my life. A moment where nothing existed but the dance, and the dance overwhelmed everything. 15 years with the Mansudae art troupe, and that night was the peak. When he rose from his seats and applauded 3 times, every nerve in my body lit up with a joy only a dancer can understand. The kind of elation that borders on reverence. In that moment, I believed it was the greatest honor of my life. But that night, the truth settled in. Those 3 standing ovations weren't the highest glory. They may have been a death sentence. Around that same time, a shocking truth surfaced, one connected directly to my past. And then, one day, a single remark from a fellow dancer shook everything loose. "You smell like the South." It sounded like a joke, but those words shoved me to the edge of a cliff in an instant. The life I'd built, the perfect artist inside a perfect system, started to crack. The dancer on the stage was disappearing. In her place stood a target under surveillance. In the end, I had to choose. Hold on to the glittering stage and a life that looked safe but felt like a prison, or abandon everything and risk my life to escape. I chose to cross the border. But during the escape, a letter was placed in my hands, and it revealed another secret entirely. Someone had been watching over me for a long time. Someone had been helping me from a place I couldn't see. What was the real truth behind those 3 rounds of applause? And who was the person who helped me to the very end? The legend that began that day at the Pyongyang Grand Theater, it started flowing in an entirely different direction.
Before we start, please subscribe and like. Every day brings new heartwarming stories and the beginning of a joyful day. Let's begin today's story.
I still remember that night. Every detail. Kim Jong-un rose from his seat 3 times to clap. 3 times. Again. 1 more time. The People's Cultural Palace shook with applause. I stood center stage, catching my breath, preparing for a 3rd encore. 15 years I danced with the Mansudae art troupe. Not once had the supreme leader personally demanded 3 encores. On the surface, it was the highest honor imaginable. But underneath, my stomach turned. In North Korea, too much attention from the powerful isn't a blessing. It's a warning. The stage lights were blinding, but I forced myself to glance at the front row. My husband sat there. He worked at the National Defense Science Academy Missile Research. His face had gone white as paper. His eyes said everything. "Sunhwa, we're in trouble." The song ended. A 3rd standing ovation erupted. I smiled and bowed, but my fingertips wouldn't stop trembling. The moment I stepped backstage, the troupe director grabbed my arm. "Comrade Ri Sunhwa," the marshal was deeply pleased. "He's ordered a private rehearsal studio for you. Congratulations," he called it. My heart only beat faster. I was changing in the dressing room when a fist pounded on the door. "Comrade Ri Sunhwa, report to the 3rd floor waiting room. State security is here." My legs gave out. I dropped into the chair. A small room on the 3rd floor. A man in a gray suit was already waiting. Kim Yong-chul, Political Security Division, Ministry of State Security. He opened a notebook and began going through my file. My husband's job, family connections, birthplace, education. I answered each question, but a voice inside me whispered the whole time. Our entire family just went under the microscope. The questions about my hometown wouldn't stop. He confirmed I was from a village near the Seongcheon River in North Hamgyong Province. Then he dug deeper who I'd lived with as a child, how my cousins were connected, every branch of the family tree. The interrogation ended. On the drive home, Pyongyang's streetlights glowed the same as always. But the whole city looked different to me now. One enormous prison. The moment I walked through the door, my husband asked, "What did state security want? We're persons of interest now." He squeezed my hand. "Sunhwa, we need to start thinking about another path. Neither of us said the word defection out loud. Not yet. But that night 3 encores and a summons from state security, those were the first signals that my life was about to change direction. The real problem, though, was something I didn't understand until later. The reason the investigator had been so obsessive about my hometown and family ties. Someone had already pulled my file. Someone had been looking into me before I ever set foot on that stage. To tell my story properly, I have to start with where I came from. A small village near Seongcheon, North Hamgyong Province. The Seongcheon River visible from nearly every doorstep. Kids who grow up surrounded by mountains and river water learn to survive on scenery alone. Winters smelled like burning firewood. Summers rang with children laughing by the riverbank. That was my entire childhood. We weren't well off. My father worked in a factory. My mother sold tofu at the Jongmadang, the unofficial street markets where people traded whatever they could to get by. Our table always had corn rice. But on holidays, my mother somehow found real white rice and set it in front of us. I had a cousin close to my age. Her name was Seongcheon. 2 years younger, but she never backed down from anything. Stubborn as they come. Still, we were inseparable. Whenever our mothers handed out corn snacks, Seongcheon would reach for the biggest piece every time and get scolded for it. But at night, she couldn't fall asleep unless she was holding my hand. Uni, even if we're apart someday, you'll think of me when you see this. She slipped a small silver ring onto my finger. Letters were engraved on the inside, but I was too young to read them. Years later, I found out what they said. Sisters. Never forget. The happiness didn't last. One winter, my father got into an argument with men sent down from Pyongyang. The next morning, he was gone. We never heard from him again. My mother fell ill for days afterward. Then one morning, they found her body on the banks of the Seongcheon River. Cold and still, I was sent to an orphanage. Seongcheon and I were separated without a goodbye. Where she went, whether she was even alive, I had no idea. At the orphanage, someone noticed I was flexible. That earned me a recommendation to an arts school. From there, my life funneled into one narrow lane: dancer. My body became my meal ticket, the only way forward besides rations. Back then, I never questioned the system. I believed that if I danced hard enough, I could somehow wash away the misfortune that had fallen on my family. I moved to Pyongyang Arts School, then the Mansudae art troupe. The stage was the only thing I looked at. Whenever homesickness crept in, I told myself the same thing: if you cry now, they'll send you back to the Seongcheon River. And so I tucked my memories of Seongcheon into a deep drawer in my mind. Sometimes her face would surface, that stubborn little girl fighting over a candy, but I'd push it back down. How could I have known? Decades later, that name would shake my world all over again. Life in the Mansudae art troupe looked glamorous from the outside. Stage lights, glittering costumes, performances broadcast on state television. But behind that glamour, fear was always waiting. Around that time, a dancer 10 years younger than me joined our troupe. Her name was Min Kyung. A country girl, but brimming with talent and warmth. The younger dancers adored her. On nights when rehearsal ran late, she'd bring me a cup of hot tea. Sunwa uni, drink this whenever you miss home. It'll help. I thought of her almost like a little sister. Then one winter morning, I walked into the rehearsal room and Min Kyung wasn't there. She was always the first to arrive, stretching before anyone else showed up. By noon, she still hadn't appeared. Whispers started spreading. Maybe she got sent to a military performance? Is she sick? That evening, the troupe director walked in with a rigid expression. Comrade Min Kyung will no longer be with us. Do not spread rumors. Focus on your duties. One sentence. That was all it took. In North Korea, when a name disappears, so does the person. Behind me, someone whispered. Political prison camp, they say. Sleep didn't come that night. Min Kyung kind, gentle Min Kyung erased without a trace. That was the world behind the stage one stood on every day. To make things worse, spring brought preparations for a massive performance celebrating Kim Jong-un's 10th anniversary in power. Song and dance combined into a grand spectacle. I was placed in the center line. Every morning at 5, home after 10 at night. Day after day. The physical strain wasn't the worst of it. The thought that I was standing where Min Kyung had stood it wouldn't leave me. Then one day, mid-rehearsal, the door opened quietly. The director rushed in. Everyone, straighten up. Comrade Ri Sol-ju is observing. The air turned to ice. That face, the one always seen beside Kim Jong-un. I dropped my gaze and corrected my posture. The door opened again. A woman in a neat chimijiagori traditional Korean dress entered without a sound. State security escorts stood behind her. Ri Sol-ju scanned us one by one, then spoke briefly. Continue. The music started again. We moved, but something strange happened. Her gaze landed on me. And stayed. 10 seconds. 20. 30. I couldn't meet her eyes. I stared at the floor and kept dancing. When rehearsal ended, we lined up for the formal greeting. Ri Sol-ju walked down the row and stopped directly in front of me. She studied my face for a long time. Her expression was hard to read: surprise, maybe, layered with something that looked almost like sadness. Then she turned and left without a word. That night, a strange sense of déjà vu gripped me. The little cousin who used to hold my hand and follow me along the Seongcheon riverbank. Sol-ju. When I looked into Ri Sol-ju's eyes, I'd seen something, a flash of the child I once knew. Of course, I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Early 2022. Pyongyang's winter was brutal. We lived in the Changwang Street apartments, a complex reserved for scientists. Even there, supposedly the warmest neighborhood in the city, our breath hung visible in the air at night. When the power cut out, the entire building went dark. No electric blankets, just 2 heavy cotton quilts and whatever body heat we could hold onto. My husband grew quieter during that time. He came home late more and more often. Whenever the phone rang, he'd step into the hallway to answer. "Who was that?" I asked once. His reply was short. "Someone from the institute. Military classified. Can't discuss it at home." I didn't press further. In the north, asking too many questions puts both people at risk. Then came a night I'll never forget. It was around the time of the 3 encores, right after the state security interrogation. My husband sat on the edge of the bed and spoke in a voice I'd never heard before. Low, barely above a whisper. "Sun-hwa, there's something I've been keeping from you." He checked the room, closed the door tight. "Last autumn our son, he's already in the south." The words hit like a wall of water. My ears rang. What? Our son defected? Slowly, carefully, he laid out everything he'd hidden. The story about studying in China, a lie from the start. A broker had arranged passage through Southeast Asia. Their son had made it to South Korea. He was somewhere down there now, learning the southern dialect, waiting for us. "Why are you only telling me now?" Tears choked my voice. He lowered his head. "If you knew, it would show on your face during rehearsal. Keeping you in the dark was the only way to keep you safe." Suddenly his growing anxiety made sense. The moment I caught Kim Jong-un's eye, our family's exposure multiplied. "We have to go to where our son is. Otherwise we spend the rest of our lives in this prison without him." Something shifted inside me. A word I'd kept buried rose to the surface. Talbot defection. Just saying it in your head could get you arrested. But for the first time, that word lodged itself squarely in the center of my chest. Defection, though, was nothing like the word made it sound. With Kim Jong-un's spotlight now on me, breaking through the surveillance net was nearly impossible. I was a Mansudae art troupe dancer. My movements were tracked every single day. And then, a few days later, something no one expected happened. A strange phone call came late one evening. My husband's dedicated line rang. He answered. The voice on the other end made his blood stop. "This is Ri Sol-ju. I need to speak with your husband. Tonight." He thought it was a prank at first. But the caller rattled off information no outsider could possibly know. Our address. The production I'd been assigned to. The exact date our son had left. 11 o'clock that night, my husband walked out the door on shaking legs. The meeting point was behind the state security headquarters, a narrow alley where almost no light reached. A black sedan sat there, its door cracking open. Inside, he said, was the same face from the rehearsal room that afternoon. The same neat clothing, but her eyes were sharper than they'd been in daylight. Harder. Silence filled the car for a moment. Then Ri Sol-ju spoke. Comrade Ri Sun-hwa, she feels like my sister. No, she might actually be connected to me by blood. She showed him a state security report on me. It contained records from before I entered the orphanage my village near the Seongcheon River in North Hamgyong Province. My parents, marked as executed or disappeared on charges of treason. And a small note at the bottom: one young cousin was taken to relatives in the capital. The two were separated. When I was little, there was a girl I followed everywhere. Along the Seongcheon riverbank. Her name was Sun-hwa, I think. Or maybe not. It's been so long. My husband said the moment he heard those words, every story I'd ever told him about my cousin Seolju came flooding back. Ri Seolju spoke quietly. He told me, honestly, I've spent years looking away from things to protect my position. Whenever someone drew too much attention from the supreme leader, my first instinct was to calculate the danger. I've turned down people who begged me to save someone. More than once. But this time was different, she said. The moment she saw my face in that rehearsal room, a memory surfaced: a child crying on the Seongcheon riverbank. The two images overlapped, and she couldn't unsee it. There's only one thing I can do for you and your husband. Loosen the surveillance. Just slightly. Just for a window of time. Anything more than that puts my own life on the line. She produced an internal government document. It authorized a small performance unit from the Mansudae art troupe to travel to Sinwiju for military morale shows during a specific period in October. My name had been quietly added to the roster. I can't leave. If I disappear too, your plan collapses instantly. But during that window, I'll redirect state security's attention elsewhere. What you do with that time is up to you. Then, he said, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. She placed it in his palm. Inside the band, faded letters read: Sisters. Never forget. My husband came home and told me everything. When he pressed that ring into my hand, words wouldn't come. I ran my finger along the engraving inside the band. Then the tears broke loose and wouldn't stop. The memory hit me all at once. Seolju, small and serious. Sliding that ring onto my finger by the Seongcheon riverbank. Uni. Even if we're apart, look at this and think of me. That memory, buried for decades, came alive again that night. The plan moved faster than we expected. My husband began quietly converting our possessions into U.S. dollars. I went to rehearsal every day as if nothing had changed. During the Sinwiju performance window, we'd make contact with a broker. Ri Seolju's intervention had pulled our names beneath the surveillance radar, at least temporarily. October. I boarded the train with the performance unit bound for Sinwiju. My heart was already across the river. Now or never. That single thought carried me through every day. The performances ended. The night we'd been waiting for arrived. The meeting point was a deserted alley on the outskirts of Sinwiju. We carried a bag with $20,000 and slipped out, checking every shadow. A man appeared just past the scheduled time. Black cap pulled low. He spoke in clipped sentences. You're Ri Sun-hwa and Ri Myung-chul? Verification done. He got straight to business. Crackdowns have gotten worse. The agreed price won't cover it anymore. 5,000 more per person. A familiar pattern one countless defectors have faced. We pleaded, told him this was everything we had. He zipped the bag shut and shook his head. Then we're done here. I've got a business to run. He vanished into the darkness. We sank against a wall in that alley. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, my husband broke the silence. Sun-hwa, we have to decide. Go back to Pyongyang and live under the microscope. Again, or cross the river ourselves. An image rose in my mind. Little Seolju, knee-deep in the water, grinning. Uni, it's not even cold. This is the path Seolju opened for us. If we turn back now, there won't be another chance. We decided to cross the river on our own. Walking through the darkness outside Sinwiju toward the Amok River, the Yalu, that feeling will stay with me until I die. The water was colder than I'd imagined. Deeper, too, when it reached my waist. Flashlight beams and the crunch of military boots echoed from somewhere upstream. Get down, my husband's whisper. We lowered ourselves until only our faces broke the surface. We held our breath. 1 second, 2, 3. Those few moments stretched into what felt like a lifetime. I prayed silently. Mother, wherever you are, And Seongcheon, if somehow you know what's happening right now, just this once, let us live. The lights swung the other direction. The footsteps faded. We raised our heads and kept moving. When my feet touched mud on the far bank, my husband's voice cracked. Sunhwa, we made it. But that was only the entrance to another kind of hell. We reached a small, Chinese border village with a large Korean Chinese population. Korean language signs dotted the streets, but the accent was different. Everything was unfamiliar. Everything was terrifying. We found the person Ri Sol-ju had arranged in advance of Pastor Kim, who ran an underground ministry in the basement of a Korean church. He'd helped dozens of defectors before. That first bowl of hot soup. I can still taste it. Making it this far means you're halfway there. But do not let your guard down in China. Not for a second. Those were his first words. A few days later, he connected us with a safe house, a Korean Chinese woman named Sunhwa. Ironic, sharing my name. She seemed kind at first. Make yourselves comfortable. I'll bring your meals. But as days passed, her questions grew specific. Which part of Pyongyang did you live in? What did your husband do? Where's your son now? One night, I got up to use the bathroom and overheard her talking on the phone behind a closed door. Yeah, they're Pyongyang elites. Husband worked at the National Defense Science Academy. Son's already in South Korea. How much? For both of them it's got to be worth at least. My blood ran cold. Before dawn, we slipped out and knocked on the door of another Korean church. Please help us. The woman we were staying with was trying to sell us. The young pastor at this church listened quietly and nodded. You were lucky to get out in time. It happens more than you'd think. But not everyone's like that. Let's keep going together. Through his network, we found a trustworthy route. This one ran through Vietnam and Thailand, ending at a South Korean embassy. Months more of hiding, constant movement, buses, trains, cramped rooms, languages we couldn't understand. The details would fill another story entirely. But in early 2023, we stood in Bangkok holding boarding passes for Incheon. Sitting in the departure lounge with that ticket in my hand, I held the ring one more time. Traced the letters inside. Sisters, never forget. Sol-ju, wherever you are, whatever name you go by. Now I will carry this debt for the rest of my life. I whispered it in my heart and boarded the plane to Incheon. The day my feet touched the ground at Incheon Airport, an official glanced at my refugee processing documents, not a passport, and said simply, "You've been through a lot. Welcome to South Korea." 5 words. My legs buckled. I collapsed into a chair and sobbed. Hanwon, the government resettlement center, came next. Classes on South Korean history, law, economics. Lessons on converting northern expressions into southern ones. Everything felt foreign at first, but survival has a way of making people learn. The greatest gift came a few months later. A reunion with our son. The door to the visitation room opened, and the young man who walked in was taller than the boy I remembered. His voice was deeper. Mom, Dad, 1 word each. The 3 of us held each other and cried until there was nothing left. How did you get here? Our son asked. My husband managed a grin. Got conned twice, fell down 3 times, and ended up wading across the river. Our son noticed the old silver ring on my finger. He studied it. Mom, you always wear that ring. What's the story? I hesitated. Then I said, someday, when reunification feels close, I'll tell you everything. Your mother has a sister connected by blood still out there. After Hanwon, we started over in a small apartment in Gyeonggi province. Our son worked convenience stores, factories, delivery routes, and eventually put together enough for our home. I became a dance and movement instructor at a youth cultural center. My husband found quiet work at a research facility. The first time we went to a samgyeopsal restaurant, Korean grilled pork belly. The meat sizzled on the grill, and tears came out of nowhere. Just the fact that we could eat until we were full. That alone felt like a miracle. But even inside that happiness, when the lights go off at night, one face always comes back. The little girl holding my hand, running along the Seongcheon riverbank. And the woman in the Pyongyang rehearsal room, watching me in silence. Whether Ri Sol-ju in this story matches any real person or not, to me, She's simply the face of a little sister I've carried with me since childhood. So these days, I hold a quiet hope. Someday, I want to ride a train from Seoul to Pyongyang. I want to stand on the banks of the Seongcheon River and call out Seolju, I'm here. And I want to slide this ring back onto her finger. You've probably watched footage of the Korean War. Families separated for decades, meeting for the first. And last time at reunion events, faces crumpling, hands shaking. You remember that weight in your chest. For me, reunification isn't a grand political slogan. It means one simple thing: seeing my family. Visiting my parents' graves. To everyone who stayed with my story until the end, thank you, from the bottom of my heart. More than 20 million people remain in the North. Somewhere among them, someone is still someone's sister, someone's daughter, someone's mother. I hope we can look toward them together, quietly, and say this. We will meet again. Let's not hate each other. We're still one people. Until that day comes, I'll keep living here, quietly, waiting, and from time to time, sharing my story just like this. If you made it to the end, a single comment letting me know you heard me would mean the world. Thank you.